and welcome to the HorrorBelles podcast, a new podcast for Fempop looking at horror in film, TV, books, comics, and video games. I'm Jill Scharr.
I'm Cherlynn Lowe.
The way that we're approaching this is that I'm not a horror fan, and Cherlynn is.
I'm a huge horror fan.
So we might get into some fights. Loving fights.
I wonder what loving fights are.
Oh, no.
But anyway,
maybe I didn't mean it that way. But that's the idea. So the first thing that for this week's episode, we looked at the new show, The Strain. There were 3 episodes out when we watched it. We watched the first episode together and then the next 2 by ourselves, and now we're here to talk about it.
To talk about our reactions. So I had already read the comic before watching the first 3 episodes, and just for those people who don't know, the comic was based off of the original novel that Guillermo del Toro wrote, I believe, together with Chuck Hogan. And so I found that actually led me to feel unsatisfied with the series so far.
But I feel like you would have enjoyed it better if you hadn't read the comics first?
For sure. I mean, I've heard people rave about the TV series, about how it's different and how it's so creepy and scary. But I was like, I knew what was coming. So that really took it away from me. And you know, like horror, that's the one thing you can't have, is you can't know what's going to happen next.
That's true. Was there a moment that you remember where you were like, oh, this is supposed to be suspenseful, but I know how it ends, so this is boring?
Oh yeah, like the scene where Gabe, the rocker guy, was kind of like that love scene with all those women in the same bed. I knew he was going to sink his teeth into one of them. Oh, yeah. So there's no suspense for me whatsoever there. But how did that scene play out for you? Like, how did you feel?
We talked a little bit in the first episode about the acting quality and some of the weird dialogue, and the setup to that scene was, his name is Gabe? Was it Gabe? He's talking about how he feels weird because he's becoming a vampire, and so he tells his manager, like, go find me some hot chicks or something like that. And I was like, okay. I mean, I guess rockers might speak like that, but... And then we get to the next scene later on where it starts with 3 women making out with each other, and it was a very lesbian sexuality completely on display for a male perspective. So it's already me being like, you know, grouchy feminist, being like, oh my god, this is spectacularizing, like, and then he joins in and I was like, all right, whatever. And then
I wasn't feeling it at all, that scene, because I mean, it's the same in the comic, and I can pull up the exact scene for you, but I don't believe women do that in real life. Like, well, I guess if you're waiting to have sex with a rock star, would you start making out with another woman on the bed first?
I guess it depends
if you're actually bi.
Right. I guess if you're actually bi. I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I can't speculate.
It would be fun if you were. I would want to know more.
And I think that regardless of what we never get to see what the women are thinking, right? So it's really just the scene is there for an audience that expects, like, titillation from a male perspective, I think. Titillation.
Nice choice of words. I think we'll get to the other female characters in the show in a bit, but I want to kind of talk about the show overall as well. The idea that Guillermo del Toro strongly emphasized with this series is that he wanted to de-romanticize vampires. So I think he's just sick of Twilight, where the vampires just glisten in the dark, or glisten in the sun.
So de-romanticize meaning love stories?
Yeah, kind of like just to make them less glam.
Okay.
And less fun, less handsome and sexy. Okay. In fact, I think he said something like, this isn't the vampire that will take you out on a date, this is a vampire that's going to eat you. and in his depiction of the vampires, what do you feel? Did you imagine vampires would look this way?
I'm just laughing because 10 years ago you wouldn't have to clarify that vampires don't take you on dates. Now you really do. I think, well, there was the way that they look. Remember that scene where the vampire's henchman, the guy who doesn't breathe, is like putting his face on?
Yeah, that's such a good scene.
Yeah, that was actually a really good scene.
That was not even in the comic. I was very impressed. Well, maybe it was in an issue that I missed. But yeah, I was very impressed.
Yeah, and it was also kind of cool because like it's just the opposite of what the behind the scenes was, because in the story is that it's this very, kind of Voldemort-y looking person who puts on prosthetics, and then eventually he ends up looking like the actual actor, so that the person who is playing it, that face is supposed to allegedly then be like a bunch of cosmetics. But then, the reality behind the scenes would be the opposite. Like, this scene starts with him wearing the fake pieces, and then it goes to... So that was pretty cool.
Because the scene after that, he's in full human face, and I'm like, oh, there the actor had to shed all the makeup. Right. And so it's a reverse order thing. That was really fun.
Yeah. But, one of the things... So, just back to the idea of the appearances, I haven't read the Strain comic books or the novel, but I have read Dracula by Bram Stoker, which I really liked that book. In that book, they describe Dracula pretty early on when Jonathan Harker goes to visit him in his estate near Transylvania, and he obviously looks very creepy. He's got pale skin and pointy teeth and fingernails, and he's just like crazy, like pale white but with bright red lips. But he can pass as a normal human, like just a creepy looking human, and not the makeup guy we were just talking about, but Dracula himself, he's called the Master in this show.
Yep.
He can't pass for a human.
He can't. He has to hide in his coffin.
He looks pretty icky.
I mean, when I first heard about or saw the strain, I actually didn't think it was about vampires. I thought it was about some kind of zombie monster hybrid. And that got me excited because, I'm all about the zombies.
All about the zombies.
I'm kind of into vampires, but, not as much. But yeah, I think this depiction of the vampires is a lot more fun, actually. It gives them range with the tongue.
Yeah. What's going on with that there? It's like there's another organism. It looks to me like there's another sort of like parasite in their mouths that bites things.
A huge worm.
It is the worms.
It's a giant worm.
That.
They morph into one giant. I don't think that's exactly what it is.
Or something.
They turn all the internal organs into. I'm speculating here, but
it could be like a vampire is like an actual like a parasite, like a composite of.
Right. It sucks blood like mosquitoes do, or something.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
But you brought up Dracula, and I think I think you saw a lot of parallels when you were watching the pilot between Dracula and the show. Like there was.
Oh, it starts off with like something that's right from the book, which is around I guess maybe a third of the way through is when, like the story in the book Dracula is that Count Dracula has bought property in England, and so he has to come over to occupy his territory, and then he can use that as a sort of foothold into England to infect the whole country, blah blah blah. And so part of the book is told from the point of view of a captain's log, because the whole book is epistolary, which is what I like about it. So this part is told through the captain's log of this ship. I think it's a Russian ship called the Demeter, which goes from Germany to England, and its cargo was full of boxes of sand, like big coffins full of sand and dirt. And that's how like Dracula, for some reason, needs to transport the earth of his territory to England. Right. So that part is right. I mean, the airliner is called Regis instead of Demeter, and that we're trying to think about that. Like that means king in Latin.
Yeah.
But
well, you caught that. I didn't catch that. I didn't see a lot of parallels with Dracula, but I did see some with The Walking Dead. But that's because of my obsession with the whole his ex-wife / being divorced wife is Laurie for sure, and because I kind of know what's going on and what will happen in the future, I'm like, yeah, she's Laurie. I didn't buy a lot of the relationships going on in the show at all. Like, I mean, we'll launch into favorite characters in a bit, but the characters I liked had no relationships whatsoever with anyone, because that way it was so much more believable. What do you think of the main guy, Ephraim? F. Goodweather.
I don't really buy him yet. I think a lot of the acting was not great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it got better after the pilot,
better,
but at the beginning it seemed like all the actors were like on green screens separate from each other. They didn't seem to be communicating or feeding off of each other at all. And I mean, the idea of Ephraim seems right now to be a lot of collection of tropes to my, cynical self. Like he's the recovering alcoholic, the busy career man who still thinks he can take care of his kid when he clearly can't, and is also having an affair with his coworker.
I don't know that it's an affair.
Is it not?
I wonder if it's.
Didn't they straight up say like, "I'll always be here for you"?
No, they are seeing each other for sure because they made out and stuff. But I don't know that it's like an affair because he's separated from his wife. She's banging some other guy.
Yeah, in his words, yeah.
In his words, in his house. And, I like that his first reaction is to go to AA, to go to a meeting.
Yeah, I think it's cool that he's got the AA thing going on.
But it is a collection of tropes. I feel like I've seen that same scene 1,000 times.
Right.
Not only in horror, but also I think another thing we noticed in the pilot was Guillermo del Toro's directing. It was a little heavy-handed in the pilot. And then I read a little about it. The next 2 episodes were a lot better. Like I like that scene where one rat just scuttled across the street where the pest master guy, I think his name is Vasily, was standing in the distance, and that scene was shot from the ground up, and I was like, that's a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Also, I love the scene with spoiler alert, where the little girl actually attacks her father. I thought that was really nice.
There were a lot of like money shots.
So
in
many
that
money
scene,
shots. But the thing is, the two episodes that were well directed were not by Guillermo del Toro. They were by the David. I don't know how to say his last name. I forget how to pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually directed episodes in American Horror Story, as well as I think Lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the showrunner actually was producer for Lost and is working on other stuff that's also done well.
Yeah.
So I think it's the contributions of these people that's making the show take off, and I feel like it's being it's well received. Is
it?
Yeah.
Can we talk about the feeling scared though?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Because that's one thing we wanted to talk about in this podcast in general, is to figure out
what
I mean, horror, I think a definition of the genre is something that tries to scare you, and we want to figure out what the creators are putting forth as scary, what we actually found scary, how the whole mechanism of fear works in these things. And so we're going to try to figure out what scares us and what didn't scare us, but maybe we thought was intended to scare us. And I was not really scared by any of the 3 episodes of The Strain. I was grossed out. I was pretty grossed out for a couple of the scenes. I will never eat again while watching this show because
so good.
I was eating during the scene when the rocker bit the women.
Yeah.
I was eating pasta with red sauce, and then he starts to lick blood off the floor, and I almost threw up.
But
it
that
was
was one of my favorite scenes.
It was a good scene, but I guess I just ruined it for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't eat while you're watching that. Don't think about red stuff.
Yeah, and I guess it was a good scene in terms of it constructed a very easily digestible, for lack of a better word, scenario that we are associated with vampires, right? Kind of sexy, and then it turns into the blood, and the way that the camera zoomed in on her veins. I mean, even if it was sort of voyeuristic in the beginning, it
panned out too.
It was, voyeurism was part of the intention, I think, and I think that scene was actually pretty successful in what it did.
Yeah, and with the pulse thing, I like that the sound they keep hearing is that pulse in their ears, that they're starting to have heightened senses and stuff. But you mentioned that it's supposed to be kind of sexy even. I don't see vampires as sexy at all, not even Edward Cullen.
Well, can vampires have sex in the world of The Strain now that we know what happens to them?
Not in The Strain, no. They're sexless creatures.
They are sexless creatures.
They're supposed to be. That's because Del Toro hated the sexy vampires so much.
So much that he chopped a guy's dick off.
He castrated all of them. He made them all sexless. He's like, there you go, never having sex again.
Can we talk about that scene?
Take that, Mormons.
That was
the most...
no.
You know, it was a Mormon who wrote Twilight. Yeah. But let's talk about that scene that will forever remain, I think, in TV history.
I saw it before Cherlynn did, and I texted her, and I was like, "Wait till you get to the penis scene."
You didn't even, did you? Yeah, that's exactly what you said. And you said, what was that funny little pun you made about Plop?
Oh, I forget.
I have it.
It's a really important plop point.
Plop point. It was a plot point, you guys, and I was like. I read the comic, and the thing is, in the comic, there isn't an actual plop. You can't do things with sound.
Right, yeah.
And so, in the comic, it was just a stump.
Okay, so, so what happens is that the rocker guy, this is after the scene with the sex scene with the 3, or the almost sex scene with the 3 women. He is in the bathroom, standing up at the toilet, and you can hear the stream of the tinkle, and then there's a plop noise. And I don't know why, but my first thought was, did his dick just fall off?
Right.
And then I was like, no, that's crazy. And then there's a shot where it's
flushing.
It's in the toilet's in the middle of flushing. You can see something dark and kind of reddish going down the drain. And I was like, did he poop standing up? What's going on? And then he turns around, and his whole front is just smooth like a Ken doll. And I was like, oh my God, his dick fell off!
That was at once, that's the reason this show is not scary, because it's fantastical, it's strange, but it's not scary. I mean, I wasn't horrified. Were you horrified?
See, again, I think I was not really ever scared. I mean, I think there was a little bit of fear during the first episode when they're on the plane and everyone's quiet.
Oh,
and you're some of these people are going to wake up and start doing something weird.
Yeah.
So there's tension there, but I think every other point, even the scene, I think this was also in the pilot where that one guy gets his head bashed in, I wasn't really scared so much as just grossed out. I think the show relies a lot on body horror.
Yeah. I mean, there was just one scene where I had a real scare in the 3 episodes so far. Was when the pilot, he's in the basement kitchen eating the bags of blood.
Oh, that was so gross.
Oh, it was a good scene though. And then you think he's dead on the ground, but he reaches out and grabs Nora's legs, and that gave me a shock. It wasn't so much scary, but because he was lying there, you kind of, like, as an experienced horror watcher, I know something else is coming up. So I was sitting there crouched. I was like, something's going to happen next. And it came, and I just jumped. And that was a good scene. And then I may be one of those people that likes that body horror that you're talking about, because every time they smashed a head in, I was like, yeah, do that again, baby.
Oh, no. Well, so I think my issue with body horror probably comes down to preference, but I feel like a lot of the time, though, I think that there are 2 kinds of horror that we see in TV and movies, and one of them is this sort of the thriller kind of psychological thriller,
like suspense more than anything
aspect. Yeah, and then I feel like, and this is me making a judgment, I guess, but I feel like then the second kind of horror is horror that relies on just being really gross and visceral, and that just seems like a
gore porn.
Yeah, it feels like when you're not sophisticated enough to really scare someone, you're just gonna pull out the blood.
And the loud sounds and the banging, and that's a very common thing in horror now, whether it's just gore porn or whether it's proper suspense and stuff. And very rarely you see something that does both well these days, at least in my opinion. And I think we'll definitely cover that in the later episodes of this podcast for sure. Let's get back to the strain. What were your favorite scenes?
When his dick fell off.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was, so we have a document, guys, of our favorite scenes. All Jill wrote was when his dick fell off, all in caps.
That was actually the thing that got the biggest reaction from me, because I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. That was, I mean, and it's funny because that's not even scary.
That was funny.
And I'm saying that again. But so I wrote down, I have copious notes from watching the show for you guys. And some of my favorite scenes are like, when the little girl attacks her dad, when they smash the head in, when the master guy smashes the head in, and you see his brains just all over the floor. Yeah. That was great. I put stars on my favorite scenes. I like the worms. I think a lot of people liked the worms.
That was an interesting idea, because we were talking about the idea that vampirism is a sort of medical.
Yeah, why would the CDC be involved in this?
Right. There were some nitpickies, maybe nitpicky, maybe just sort of, what we do to movies, but we were watching it and we were like, there has to be some kind of protocol for this. There can't be like the FBI and the CDC just
fight
arguing
over the same scene.
Yeah,
who gets control.
Let's do rock, paper, scissors for it. No, there should be some kind of protocol.
They shouldn't have to. Guys.
Yeah. That seemed a little bit ridiculous. It was sort of like posturing. You mentioned the scene when the little girl attacks her dad. That was, it was obvious. It was a very visually stylistic scene. I think it was one of the most, in terms of imagery, the most evocative scene. Yeah. And I think part of the reason for that is that we just little kids in general, but I think little girls particularly are associated with this idea of innocence and purity, and so the fact that she has become this eldritch horror,
she's basically
is just extra horrifying. So it's that kind of juxtaposition.
Also with the music in the background during that scene, it was some kind of a nursery rhyme or a lullaby. Or something.
It was definitely very intentionally using like her female body in a way to up the tension. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that I think that's part of the anatomy of the scene. Yeah.
But I really like the scene for the it's coming, coming.
Yeah.
And then when it happens, it's so satisfying. That was, they used music in another scene too, where it was Sweet Caroline.
Oh yeah. Right? I like that actually.
When the guy got his head bashed in, wasn't that the scene?
No, I think it was the scene where the mortician gets attacked by the other bodies.
Right. Dude, that was one of my favorite scenes too.
That was a very zombie scene.
It was very zombie. That's part of why I liked it. I also like that you can see into their bodies, their internal organs were all just there.
Yeah. And some of them were like in the middle of being dissected by the forensic analysis. They had their
autopsy and stuff.
Yeah. It was pretty horrifying.
It was awesome though. Like I've never seen a scene like that, given all the zombie stuff I've seen so far. So that was great, and I like that he got into a cozy little room with his first male body. I wonder why I was making so many jokes.
Actually, I was wrong though, because the part where he gets into that little closet, the UV closet, he's in like the mortician is in like a tiny room with one what he thinks is a dead body, and what we all know is
going to come back to
vampire
life.
to be, and we're like, oh, he's just going to get to like eaten in that small room before he can escape, and that isn't actually what happened. So
yeah,
I guess
which
we
is
got
nice.
faked out. Yeah, but you mentioned the music. The music is actually done by Ramin Djawadi, who is the guy who did the music in Pacific Rim, again with Guillermo del Toro, and Game of Thrones.
There you go.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty good pedigree. I really like his other stuff.
But I like those. There's so many scenes to pick, but for some reason, everything in between those scenes, though, was just painful for me to watch. I was like, I don't want to see your family history. I'm supposed to feel emotionally drawn to you, but I don't.
I think some of the scenes were so flat. I think like the wife was only really in 2 scenes. The first one where he goes to the divorce counseling, I think that was the one scene where I first had the thought, like, these actors could be in separate rooms.
Yeah.
They're not talking to each other at all. Like, he is distressed in one way and she's distressed in a completely other way, and they don't look like. I guess that's part of the idea for the divorce, maybe, but it seemed like bad acting. And the second one that I thought was also kind of disappointing was the scene where the son, Zach, gets up to find his mom, and he finds her looking at a photo album with a family photo album, and then she's crying, looking at pictures of her soon-to-be ex-husband, Ephraim, our main character, and their son. And it was I guess it was supposed to be like I don't know what it was supposed to be, because it seemed like it was just there to be like, isn't Ephraim great? Like, even his wife who's divorcing him still kind of has feelings for him.
I was that way. I saw it as a way to kind of awkwardly show that, she still has feelings for him. I did feel a little sad at that scene, because I was like, they clearly want to be a family, but then this guy's too busy with work. Like, men have more important things to do.
But I haven't gotten any sense of her character other than this kind of like, she hates him, but she loves him, but she hates him kind of thing. And
It's her character. So let's look at the female characters so far in this show, right? So we're talking about Kelly Goodweather just now. She's confusing. I feel ambivalent towards her, but I kind of almost hate her already.
You compared her to Laurie from The Walking Dead.
Because it sucks when she's on TV. Like, it just sucks when she's in the scene. I'm like, oh God, we're gonna talk about his family again. And then
wait, she meaning Laurie or
no, Kelly
or both?
Laurie too, but in this show,
I
Kelly.
didn't hate Laurie, because I think part of it was when we meet Laurie first in The Walking Dead, she's doing something. On her own.
She's doing Shane? Oh, okay.
She's doing Shane, but that is
almost the first time I saw her was her doing Shane.
Right, but she's also on her own surviving. Like, she took her kid
with
and she ran, and
although she needed a man to take care of her too.
She had Shane help her there, but at least she's doing something, kind of
other than being a bad mother and wife. Yeah, I guess.
I mean, and she's actually kind of trying to be a good mother. Like, the whole idea of her.
But she keeps pawning Carl off to other people.
Wait, who are we talking about? Laurie or?
No,
Laurie, yes,
Laurie.
is not the greatest mom. She keeps pawning Carl off. But Kelly
is a good mom.
Is divorcing F largely because she wants a dad who will be there for.
Yeah, no, that I can see, and I think she's doing good. But having her on the screen is a signal to me that we're going to slow down and talk about Ephraim's life problems, and that is why I associate her with bad feelings. Because, see, when people like the old man are on the screen, I'm like, shit is going down. The other woman, though, she's just always there.
Her name is Nora Martinez.
Nora Martinez.
Well, one thing about, I think what you just said was interesting now, because about how it's boring when Kelly's on the screen because the action slows down. And you're right, she has no vested interest in the main plot about vampires.
Yeah.
Her only connection is through Ephraim. So she's only really there as an accessory for his character development. She has no stake in the haha, vampire puns.
Oh my God.
But Nora Martinez, we mentioned her a little bit more as like this woman with whom Ephraim is apparently having an affair. She's also kind of she is his colleague, but also she hasn't had an original idea since.
She's his assistant basically, and not just for work, but also in life, because she's always getting him to go to your custody hearing, go get Zach, because he's important to you. And if his kid is so important to him, why does he need these constant reminders to, he should be 100% there. But I kind of hate this guy. But you know what? Now that I'm on the 3rd episode of the show, I think I might continue to watch it. But I was curious. I'm not sure. I don't think this is the first horror thing you've seen.
Ever?
Right?
No.
No, but what else have you seen on TV, like a horror TV show?
Probably the only horror TV show I watched was The Walking Dead, actually.
Okay. So The Walking Dead is decent, but it's also got the same kind of at least in season 2, where it just drags on forever. But I mean, I've seen others like American Horror Story season 2 was great and blah blah. So, did you like The Strain as a person who's not a fan of horror?
No.
Did not.
I did not like it.
Why not?
Well, because I feel like I wasn't scared. And not to say that I really like to be scared in the first place, but I think that if the show set out to scare me, it didn't scare me. And if it set out to just gross me out, then, like, you succeeded. But I'm less interested in being grossed out than I am in being scared. Also, I didn't think there were any really compelling characters and things like that. I mean, I might continue to watch because you're watching it.
Aww.
But I think that it didn't really do anything to hook me right away.
I think there are some scenes you're still obviously obsessing about the penis scene, and it can't rely on all these little gimmicky scene things to keep it moving unless they. Well,
have a lot more and that wasn't really. I mean, there was an aspect of like gross outness to that, of course, but I thought it was actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking about mostly like the head bashing and the blood drinking. There was so much blood drinking.
That though.
Yeah, no, there has to be blood drinking. I mean, I can't like critique it. Like, this was bad because there was blood drinking. Like, I signed up for that because this is a vampire story and that's what we're here for.
I like when he drank the blood from the raw meat that was sitting in the fridge. There's actually so much that we haven't talked about this show. There's the creepy guy with the makeup and how he talks to the guy with the tattoo. There's just a lot more. I don't think we have time to go into all of it.
The thing is, there is the one other female character who probably will be a main female character is like, so of the 4 survivors of the plane, there were 3 men and then there's a lawyer woman. And we've seen the other 3, like they all left.
Yeah.
Yeah, we followed the other 3 through their, their transformation, and we haven't seen her at all since she left.
She hasn't consumed of the blood yet.
No, we haven't even just glimpsed her though.
We have seen her eyes turning red. She had to leave the restaurant.
Oh, you're right, because her gums were. Oh, right, because she's in the restaurant with
But we still haven't seen her beyond that, and it's interesting what they're going to do with her. Like, how is she going to become sexless? That would be interesting for me. And have all the men's sticks dropped off? That's a very important. That's probably
very
the
important
most important question. I would like to hear 2 more plops, and maybe 2 more from the woman, because titties.
Oh no.
Because there's 2 of those, you know?
True.
So there's 4 plops. We're waiting, Guillermo del Toro, if you're listening to this. 4 more plops. You owe me.
Well, I wonder if they're gonna. I mean, in the Dracula book, Dracula has these brides. They're called the brides of Dracula. These lady vampires. I wonder if she's gonna play into that at all. There isn't really any.
I feel like there's no gender.
Evidence.
There's no genderification of the vampires. Like once you turn, you're a genderless being.
That's true. Or sexless. I mean, they still have kind of a gender in that you can, like,
although
the
they're all
master,
losing
the
their
Dracula
hair.
type. They're losing their hair, but I mean, I think that it's hard to speculate, but like the master character who's supposed to be Dracula, he's got a sort of masculine-ish voice.
He does.
I think they refer to him as a he.
They do refer to him as a he.
But
the handicapped type guy and the I don't know how to say his name either, but the makeup guy, they do refer to him as a he. The show has enough characters that are interesting to keep me interested, but not engaged. It's not something I'll chase day after day.
It's not like Walking Dead for you.
It's not. Walking Dead. Yeah, Walking Dead just had a fantastic first season because right off the bat.
I love the first season of The Walking Dead.
The first season was done so well that I stuck through the second season based on the merits of the first. But then
I stuck through the second season based on the merits of Glenn.
that's also a good reason. We need to not turn this into Walking Dead sideshow.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, I think it's a comparison in that they're both. I mean, Walking Dead is kind of the quintessential horror show on TV right now.
Yeah,
right?
the most popular too. And I think that The Strain seems to be doing well, at least in terms of reception. Other people seem to be loving it. I don't know if any ladies out there love it so far.
Yeah, give us your feedback.
Let us know.
Tweet at us or leave a comment.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from you guys.
Do you think we're completely off base as ladies?
Yeah. Are we totally wrong?
Do you love the show? Do you love the characters? Let us know.
We've been talking about The Strain, the TV show The Strain.
On FX, you can watch it on Sundays, I believe.
I'm Jill.
I'm Cherlynn. Stay tuned for next week.
Yeah, we're going to be doing this bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly.
And next 2 weeks is the movie All Cheerleaders Must Die.
I have never watched that one.
Neither have I.
So it'll be great. I don't know if we're gonna watch it together, but we'll see. And so
Yeah.
you can watch it in advance of the next episode as well. So join us. Until then, this is HorrorBelle Podcast
Signing
on
off.
fempop.com.
Thanks for listening.